want to welcome everybody to the show. And today we have a special guest from Memphis, Tennessee, and her name is Love It. And she's one of our big creators on our TikTok Live Creator Network agency as a DJ and plays 60s, 70s, 80s style music. And she carries about 300 to 400 people in a room. And we're going to talk about, her journey and what she's been doing and how she ended up here on TikTok entertaining people. So Love It. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, John. I am very excited to be here. I appreciate it.
So Love It came in agency. How long has it been now? Is it over a year?
Yeah, it's a little over a year.
A little over a year. She came in agency, and I don't know, tell me a little bit about how that was inspired and how you started this process of doing this character on TikTok.
To start off, I had the TikTok app for about 2 years, and it was during the holidays in November of 2024. And I said, well, let me check this TikTok thing out, see what it's about. And so I strolled through and I ran across one of the Bang creators, and I just watched his live. He referred me to you guys, to Bang. I end up going live. I was nervous. I had no idea what I was going to do. And so I just grabbed a cup of coffee, hit the live button. Pretty much my community made Love It as AKA Pam Grier Foxy Brown.
Well, when you go on Love It's Live, she has this very relaxing voice. It's like an ASMR voice type of thing. And I think a lot of people gravitate towards that. And when you think about this, and the reason I wanted to bring Love It on the show is when you think about someone that maybe they wanted to be an entertainer, when they were in their 20s and 30s, they didn't quite have the right path. They were doing something else in life. And then you end up here with this creativity, because obviously you're creative, because there's a lot of creatives out there that are doing jobs that they don't enjoy. So TikTok giving you this opportunity, how did the character evolve? Even though the fans were asking for what was going through your head and your thought process of why you wanted to do this?
So I have my natural fro. I'm all natural. And so when I went live, I was natural. I just had my hair picked out, and the viewers started saying, "You look like Pam Grier." And I was like, oh, that's a great compliment, because to me, one of the first Black superheroes. So I just took it on. And so I wear my fro. I pick my hair out.
Where's your fro at?
Well, my fro is braided up actually today. And that's a natural way of stretching it. Sometimes it is a wig. It just depends on how my hair is doing. If I got a bad hair day, then I go get Lisa. That's what I call it. But yes, right now it's braided.
What internally have you felt in your life before you got here from a creative standpoint?
I've had some rough times in my life where, you feel closed in, and possibly some depression comes in. We don't like to talk about depression or mental health or things like that. My mom passed away in 2014. The Thanksgiving and Christmas are her favorite holiday. So I spent a lot of time with her in the kitchen. We listened to music. She taught me how to bop. Some people call it swing. She taught me how to do that. And my mother was a Diana Ross impersonator. Mm-hmm. And I didn't find this out until later. So that's what led me to TikTok, because I needed something that was fulfilling, something to take my mind off of the daily routines or the daily stress. And I love computers. So I jumped in there. I had no idea what an agency was, how TikTok worked. I just jumped in there. And I'm telling you, it saved me and pulled me out of a place that you just stay in all the time. Bad things go on and just life. Life be lifing. Let's just say it that way. Life be lifing. And so when I went on TikTok, it just takes me away. Every time I go on TikTok, it takes me away.
I've been in the entertainment business a little while. A lot of people in the entertainment business have trauma. They have mental health conditions, and Love It is a survivor. And we've talked. She had somewhat of a rough childhood coming up in Memphis, and displaced home and ran away from home. Why do you think trauma and creative sometimes go hand in hand? And maybe touch on a little bit about your story as a kid.
When it comes to my story, I'm not sure if I'm ready to share all of it, but I will say this. It led me to the creative side, first spiritual, because we have rough times in our lives. We go through things. So I pretty much was on my own from the age of 13. So we'll start there. I had a lot of great people to come cross my path. My godmother, the church, and I just developed. They just pushed me, try this, try that. My mom did the same. My mom was my best friend, and she always believed in try something once if it doesn't harm you. If that makes sense. And she put me into crocheting school. She put me into dance school. And like I said, we sang together and danced together. So I think my creativity was molded. Now, it was a blessing that was given to me from birth, because music, to be exact, music. Because at the age of 5, every song that came on the radio, I knew the lyrics. And I remember I was 5, and my brother, he asked me, how do you know all the lyrics? And I was like, I have no idea. So that was something that was installed in me from birth. And so I just had wonderful people around me to develop it.
You've had these issues with trauma. We've all had trauma. We've all had things happen, right? And we utilize that creative. The reason I was saying this, I think we utilize this creative for an escape. Do you think that was your escape, having a bad childhood at 5 years old?
Yes, I do. And I still do think that is my escape. With trauma, it's like you go to another place because you don't want to face the trauma. Mm-hmm. So when you were there, as a little girl playing with dolls and, making up stories and making a movie, with the dolls and dressing them up and things like that and doing the hair and everything. So when I put on my makeup, still to this day, makeup, music, fashion, when I model, it is an escape. It's a coping mechanism.
Well, when I look at that and I try to break that down, right? When you think about my philosophy about tone attracts tone, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have this internal tone in your non-conscious, and then you're in this, in this real-time situation, this living situation, and that living situation does not match your tone. If that doesn't match your tone, and then you hear this sound that makes you feel good, that's a contrast to your current situation. Do you think that's why it becomes the escape? Because that was your tone that you were attracted to? Absolutely.
Looking in the sky, the blue sky. I love royal blue. Looking in the blue sky, and you just float there because of the feeling to escape from whatever the trauma, being a survivor, illness, whatever the case may be. I totally agree. You got to have something, because if you don't, you'll lose it.
Well, do you feel like something was pushing you a certain direction when you were younger? Like when I was a kid, like when I played baseball, I always followed all the big baseball players, always dreamed of playing pro baseball, almost had an opportunity and didn't quite make it. And then just looking at people you may idolize, did you ever felt like you were being pushed to one of your idols, be like, hey, I can do this?
Miss Diana Ross.
Now, can you sing?
Was my person and still is my person that I portrayed as her to escape my trauma.
Well, and the reason I'm breaking this down now, because there may be somebody out there, right, that has had some similar experiences, maybe thought they didn't have an opportunity to perform because there's a certain period of their life, there's 20 years of their life where they didn't do what their passion was. And they wake up and they got this open field and this free run, and you find TikTok and you start developing this show, which I think live content on TikTok is going to be the future of social media. I mean, it's a very interesting dynamic compared to, say, 30 years ago to now, right? In dating the entertainment industry to some extent, but it's giving some, inspiration to people that have an opportunity to do what they want to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. TikTok, like you said, is the future. Just bottom line. But with that, it's not that's just not what TikTok is all. You understand? TikTok help people to develop a strength that they didn't know they had. Because some that go live, and I'm one of those.
You have a couple of things you're overcoming. You have trauma and you have a diagnosis now that affects you.
Multiple sclerosis. Absolutely. Multiple sclerosis. And it's the readmitting multiple sclerosis. So TikTok takes back to it. It takes me away from it. When I'm not thinking about it, I'm good. No relapses, no symptoms. I have them occasionally, but they don't affect me like they used to. Because if you sitting and that's all you doing is sitting and thinking, TikTok keeps you from thinking and staying in that dark spot, that real bad place. There be illness, trauma, it doesn't matter. Whatever that bad place is. When you go into TikTok, the love that you receive, nothing it's not a 100% in anything, but the love that you receive and the confidence that you receive in yourself. Because you say, wow, I can really do this. So it's a healing process as well. It's a healing process.
When do you think people chase things that they shouldn't chase? It's like there's a clear path. This is what I say. Because I deal with these creators, I deal with talent all the time. And it's a very clear path. When they get there, they show up, they're in the room. Then all of a sudden, they know everything, right? They do this, they do that. Is the trauma trying to drag you back to the trailer park?
Pretty much. You hit the nail on the head, pretty much. Because, okay, so when you get to it, because I got there for a moment, truly. You get at a certain spot after you feel like you master it, but you can never master it. You can only get better at it. But you have the creators that go live on TikTok, and after a while, they get these numbers or, they feel like they have it down, and then they change it. They personality change. In other words, they get the big head, and then it just goes downhill. And then they end up, it's like almost like self-crashing.
Like beating yourself up for no reason. You're waiting for something bad to happen.
Absolutely. And so you make it happen without knowing that's what you're doing. You make it happen. And so when something happens, then you go, see, I knew it. But if you put your energy and your thoughts and you go towards that, because it could be 5% out of the 100%. So 5%. Or 0.5%. Let's say it that way. 0.5% of negativity or something that's pulling you that way. So if you concentrate on it, then it's gonna get bigger and bigger. But as you and I have discussed this, it's in your head. If that's what you're used to because of trauma, you find yourself going back to that because it's a comfortable spot.
Well, the reason I bring that up is when I just released this book, Finding a Perfect Audience. And when you think about first instinct, you go in there with that first instinct, you set up your show, you develop your show, right? It starts to work. Then you know everything. Before you start to know everything, if you went in on your first instinct, you've established a foundation. You are law of attraction. It's a pure source. You're doing what's authentic to you. You're doing what's passionate to you. You don't need to change anything. You need to stay in that first instinct phase.
You need to stay pure.
Yeah.
Pure. Because when you first come on, you're pure. That's the way I see it. But then when you start learning and then you start thinking about numbers and you start thinking about, with this person, this and this. No, go back. Go back to being the virgin of TikTok. Pretty much.
Well, it's like a friend of mine, Brian Dorfman, who owns Zanies in Nashville. And he said something to me when I first met him 10 years ago. He was like, John, you'll be successful in entertainment as long as everybody stays in their lane. And I'd been in entertainment previously and done different things. I chased a lot of bullshit. I was partners with Nick Cassavetes. I was able to take these deals to the highest level, the highest characters, but I didn't chip or putt like I should have. But when I thought about that, when you have a creative that is an artist that has high sensibilities, right?
Ooh,
and has a success. All of a sudden, they're, after the success, all of a sudden they're the coder.
Right.
They come in the agency and they want to tell me what is going on with the app.
Absolutely. Now that I I don't catch. Because when they come in the agency, like I said, I've been in the agency from day one of me going live. It was because of Bang that I was able to go live. When I started, I had 80 followers, and now I'm at 41,000 plus followers. And I'm grateful for that, for the opportunity. Some of the creators come in and they've already been going live. They develop bad habits, and then some that don't listen. So because when you say what you say, when you taught me, listen, I listen, and I put in my opinion as well, because it is, my platform, but you know more about it, even as me being a creator. Because as you say, it's just like, we get so passionate. We get sensitive about our stuff. We get sensitive about our stuff. But then when you come in, when Bang come in, and especially you, John, you come in and you say, hey, this is this. You've been doing this for years. So every creator that comes in, guys, Bang, listen, try it. Everything doesn't work for everyone, but it is a structure that works every platform, no matter what you do.
Well, I think if people are really going to take the initiative, it's like if you were going to a casting call for a TV show or going to a casting for a movie, you're going to go in and give that value. And I think a lot of people, the biggest thing is if you take that first step and you want to go towards a social media platform, I think you have to give it value. You have to give yourself value, and you have to treat it with value. Because if you give yourself value, you treat it with value, it'll give you value back. And that's a big deal. I think that's the biggest hindrance there is out there, even though it still is the future. They're like, social media. Well, you can't say, if you're a creative, you can't say, social media.
Right.
You're putting time, you're putting time into this that you're not going to get back.
Absolutely. And the one thing that I've learned from that, with the time you don't get back, is to use your time wisely. And then on top of that, be careful to what you put out there. Because as you say, tone attracts tone. Don't get out of character, stay in your lane. John, you're just on the money. That's all I can say. Hey.
When I hear these creators, the narrative is very similar. Right? The good ones, I'll say the good ones have a very similar situation, similar direction, and it's interesting to me that, I've lost some relationships because of that, because they didn't know. And if you think I was stern now, you should have seen me 7-8 years ago, how stern I was.
Oh, I can only imagine.
They get upset because they're highly sensitive, right? They get upset because they're highly sensitive. And then they don't want to be around me. There's, it affects the relationship. But at the end of the day, it was just trying to help them. It was because they were highly sensitive, and I don't think they realized that in that situation. Me, when I think about that now, I probably would have handled those better.
Certain situations we would have handled a little bit different or worded a certain way. But sometimes it just is what it is. And it's a learning experience, and you move forward. That's what we do. That's life.
Well, after going through life, having trauma, having somewhat of a tough childhood, and then you get into this later stages of life, and MS shows up.
Yes, say that.
How'd you handle that, and how'd you feel? Obviously, if you were beat down as a kid and had trauma, and then this hits you, it probably was. Didn't feel too good, I would imagine.
Now, this going to sound really weird. When I was diagnosed, when they actually told me I had multiple sclerosis, I was happy. Let me tell you why I was happy. Because from the age of, I want to say 19, wake up some mornings and my legs just would not move. Or I would be in pain, or I couldn't see out of my left eye, or I drop, and this is from the age of 18 up until I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed at 35. So, it was, and I would go to the emergency room. I went to the emergency room so much that when I went completely blind, I did not want to go to the emergency room because I felt as though that they were going to think that I'm just doing this for attention. Okay. So stayed in the hospital for 30 days. They did a spinal tap. One of the doctors, let me back up a little bit. One of the doctors came in and he told me after they did an ultrasound and a CAT scan, of my brain. And he tells me, he says, well, you have 32 mass on your brain. MS, if you don't know, MS is just like a cord. I describe it like a cord of a lamp. It eats the wires are covered by the plastic to protect the wires, correct? So our nerves are the same way. If that gets eaten, the outer layer, when you plug the light up, if something ate on it and it comes out, it has a shortage, right? So MS is the same way. It has a shortage. So they could have lesions. So I had 32 lesions, and he leaned over and he said to me, the only reason someone would have that many lesions on their brain is due to drug use. And so I looked up at him and I told him, I said, I've never did drugs in my life. So it has to be something else. So then they pushed to do a spinal tap. They did the spinal tap, and I had 45 lesions on my spine. I still have them. They're just not active. So 32 on my brain, 45 in my back, my spine. So when the neurologist told me, love my neurologist, and he told me, he says, well, you have multiple sclerosis. You have readmitting. It's 3 stages. Readmitting, it comes on and it can knock you down where you can't walk, you can't see, you can't talk. It's like a stroke. But then you could get steroid treatment and it could pass and you can come back 100%, or you can come back 50%. And thank God I've been pretty much coming back like 98%, 97, 98%. But when they told me about it and they told me I had to take shots for the rest of my life, the medication costs over $4,000 a month. Thank God for insurance, health insurance. I just do what I have to do. Mm-hmm. I just went with it. So really, I was happy because I found out what was happening, because I thought it was due to my trauma, because it's like, like a deer effect. You hit a deer, it's shaking. When you're going through trauma and starts as a small child, you internal hold it. And then as you get older, things trigger it, which can cause it to, and it can actually be physical pain. So I was thinking it was more that, but I was glad to hear that it was multiple sclerosis. I know that sounds weird, but I was really happy to hear that.
Well, when you think about the foundation and where you're from, being from this Memphis area, and there's a lot of spirituality there, and me and you have talked because there's a lot of musicians in that area.
Yeah.
If you think about spirituality, because a lot of people don't realize that spirituality artists go hand in hand.
It go hand in hand. As well as trauma. It goes hand in hand because it's like a third eye opening. I believe everyone has a special gift. That's me. I believe everyone has a special gift, but there's a certain something that opens that gift. It's almost like everybody carry cancer, right? So something can trigger it, activate it. And that's the way I feel about special things. Now, yes, I was blessed to be able to see things. Example, I scared my sister. One time we were going out to the club. We were young, of course, and we were going out to the club, and she parked her car. And I said, don't park here, because I saw someone is going to break in your car. And she was like,
Yeah.
So we went in the club, hadn't been in there 5 minutes. Security came and told her that someone broke in her car. And then from that point on, my family was like, you see anything? No, you see? And my friends do the same thing. It doesn't happen it doesn't happen like that. But I am a Christ follower. I believe in Jesus. I believe he died for my sins. I believe in the word of God. But I think it all comes from the trauma.
I have a theory.
It has to be. What's your theory?
If someone is a talent has to have high sensibilities.
Yes.
And whatever their non-conscious is their non-conscious. We can define whatever that is. But when there's a great talent that has these very high sensibilities, and then they come into this environment that may be crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their trauma will be exponential compared to someone that doesn't have as high as sensitivities. So a lot of the times, I think the greatest ones have the most trauma because they have the highest sensibilities.
Absolutely.
And to take that theory even further back, I think that thousands of years ago, this non-Hebrew bloodline came into play. and would banish these types of people from these towns. They would push them from these towns. So now the majority of these high sensibility people with the Hebrew bloodline are coming out of these poor, these poor cities, these poor towns, because they were banished 1,000 years ago. And yes, because they grew up in a poor situation with high sensitivities, they have a lot of trauma.
Absolutely. But they have a lot of get-go too.
Yeah.
They have a lot of get-go.
People understood that mechanically, right? And could think that, get through that with their mind. The trauma would not be as exponential if they understood how they got it.
It's special talent, gifted. Yeah. And the dark side can see the gifted. They can see the light before you realize you have.
Well, it's just like this. If you have a bunch of brothers and sisters, 5 kids, let's say you have 5 kids and brothers and sisters, and there's one out of the 5 who's just a little different. The problem with that too is they're looked at different because they're acting different. And we try to normalize that difference. Even though you're in a family that could be normal, that may not have trauma, trying to normalize your difference will create trauma within itself.
In itself.
Yes.
That's like if you born left-handed, but it's a right-handed world. You see what I'm saying? And it was like, well, try to work with this. Because I use that for an example, because that's what occurred to me, with me. I'm left-handed. And in school, everything was right-handed. So I'm even-handed now because I had to use my right hand. Right-hand scissors wasn't left-handed scissors when I was in school.
Well, if you're out there and you're in that, you had a good family, but you were different and and they tried to make you the same balance as your siblings.
Yes. And that's impossible.
That's not your parents' fault. That's not your parents' fault. That's society.
No, not at all. No.
Society's fault.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we try to do. We try to normalize difference when if we as a society dove into that, it could have created some special opportunities that person could have helped humanity with. But we didn't get there because we're not that creative. We're just not. This is something I'm saying. It's like we feed off what we see. I always say this. We feed off what we see. When we feed off what we see, we create opinions and controversy, right? But if we create a new idea with a new direction, we eliminate opinions and controversy. Right? There are none, right? Because it's out front, it's new, it's fresh, it's leading. If people would quit feeding off what we see, right, we wouldn't have opinions and controversy. Yeah, and what even established that is the Newtonian model of reality. Because we accepted the Newtonian model of reality, which is completely wrong. Einstein and Oppenheimer were not that smart, right? Because we're waiting for something to happen.
They were just different.
I mean, they were intelligent guys, but they
but not like that.
Then that they were operating in the wrong realm of physics. And they were waiting for something to happen. So us as a society are waiting for something to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But when you wait, that's why you got to swirl of bullshit.
Yeah.
You're waiting on shit to happen.
And then you're missing opportunities.
Yeah. You're not being...
And you're not growing. You're not moving forward. You're at a standstill.
The fear keeps you there.
Yes, sure it is.
The fear doesn't let you be as creative as you should be.
That's where I was heading. Okay. I was getting ready to say, since I talk with you, since I've been in Bang and we build this relationship that we have, and with Mimi, and, everything, we build that relationship. I learned fear is something we make up. We hold on to, I'm learning and have learned fear. I don't fear. I may have like that exciting little nervous stomach or stuff but fear, that's done. So I appreciate that because I've always been a fireball. I've always wanted to try. I like to do whatever I feel that I want to do. I go do it. Basketball, modeling, police officer, federal officer, and now a TikToker, CDL licensed driver. I just go. I do it, and fear is what's holding a lot of people back. I use the concept they keep themselves in a box. I don't go do that. Lovey, you live a life of luxury. No, I just try to live my life. You can do the same thing.
If you're out there worrying about everybody else, focus on yourself. Build value in yourself.
Ooh, I'm working on that one now. I'm working on that one.
Build value in yourself. I need to build more value in myself sometimes.
Shortcoming is I'd rather help than to receive. And see, sometimes that could come from trauma as well, that you feel like you're undeserving. So you rather for somebody else to do it. But then when you look at it, then you're like, well, why I ain't do that for myself? You know? So that's kind of where I'm at now. You know, being a little bit more selfish.
Well, you need to be, right?
Yeah. Being a little bit more selfish.
Everybody else, because everybody else ain't writing you a check.
You better say that. They're not writing me no check.
Before we get off here, I mean, and maybe we can have you back on and talk some more, but tell me what we should expect on TikTok in the Love It Music Den.
What's heading now is more conversation, more sitting back, like sitting around at a coffee table. I still want you to feel like you're actually in the den. You're visiting me in my home. So it's going to be more personal.
But what's the vibe? What are you doing?
Vibe is 60s, 70s, and 80s music. That's what Love It Music Den is about. It has a skating ring. It has a bar. It has a dance table. It has couches and chairs. And it's blue and red light specials. So you come in, listen to your 60s or 70s, the Motowns, the Stack records, and just enjoy yourself. And it helps bring together the youth that hasn't heard the songs, the 60s and 70s, that they remember their grandparents, their grandmother, their father, their mother, you know, what they grew up with, or dancing with an uncle or auntie, and the times when we used to have like the block parties and the picnic at one house, everybody brought a dish. You know, you brought a dish, and then the kids or the teenagers are watching the kids over at the neighbor's house. That's what Love Is Music Den is about. It's about family, respect, enjoying one another through music.
You want to see the fro picked out? Check out.
Yeah, you gotta see. You gotta come to TikTok at Love Is 0124.
Appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so very much, John. I appreciate this. And yes, I would like to do this again. And maybe we could come up with some different topic and help other creators, and also help myself to continue to be out there for people, to be able to help folks. Thank you, John. See you next time.
LOVET 124. My name's John Edmonds Kozma, CEO of Bang Productions, owner of the TikTok Live Creator Network Agency, and host of the Unimpressed Podcast. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.